no more wars, and our children to play one day, one day, one day.
But you know, from those first boats, we brought little, we gave little. But as you said, just showing up and a hug.
Don't disappear and never lose hope. If you do not hope, you will not find beyond your hopes. I miss you, my family.
Welcome to the podcast Living as Neighbours, in which you will meet locals on the borders of Europe who have become good neighbours to people in need. For this series, I travelled along the eastern side of Europe, from Lesbos, Greece to Sarajevo and the borders of Bosnia and the forests of Poland, and I recorded this podcast in living rooms, cultural centres, warehouses. The people I spoke to have sacrificed a great deal to respond to the needs of the people showing up at their doorstep. Refugees, asylum seekers, or migrants. But to them they are neighbours, friends, and some even become family. The people I spoke to are an example for Europe. More and more refugees will seek refuge at this continent, so listen to these people. We will all at some point have to answer the question what we did in these times. I asked each of them for some advice. For people who are in doubt whether they should be a good neighbour to those who have fled, for whatever reason, and how to do it. All give advice. My name is Rico Voorberg, theologian, activist and director of A World of Neighbours, a network of people working day and night for an inclusive Europe with newcomers and born Europeans. This podcast was made possible by the Lutheran World Federation. All music is provided by Rudy Kempson from Lesbos, from Red Music International.
Because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say, then we'll not wanna fight no more, there will no more wars, and our children to play one day, one day, one day.
Here we are on the island of Lesbos in the Hope Project. I have the great privilege of sitting here with the heart and soul of this beautiful place of hope, and it's Philippa Kempson. Very welcome.
Thank you
Podcast.
for being here, and it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again, because it's been some years since we met the first time. We were camping at your place.
And you slept in a tent in my garden.
We did, overlooking the sea.
Yeah, which is kind of, how we got involved in that, really, in everything. It's because of our location. It wasn't, people think now that we moved to Greece to be involved in the refugee crisis. We actually moved to Greece for quiet life. Didn't work out quite as planned, but that's normal in our life. It's like, let's do this, it'll be quiet. It's like, and then the world arrives. Like,
when did you move to Greece?
2000.
2000.
In the early spring. So we were here by March, I think, 2000. So.
And you're born in?
I'm from the UK, but born in Wales. Eric is English, so it's not his fault. He's a very brave man marrying a Welsh woman. But
well, you both are brave people. I mean, that's one thing I've found out.
Insanity likes company, I think.
Insanity and braveness. But we met at the shores of the island, the north shores of the island of Lesbos, where you could overlook the sea. It's a very small strait. How wide is it?
There, it's about 6 kilometers.
It's only 6 kilometers.
It's the narrowest point, actually, where we were in Eftelu, is the closest point to Turkey.
And on the other side, you see Turkey.
Yeah.
And that's where people hide in the forests until they find a boat, or they've been pushed into a boat by the
In 2015,
smugglers.
there was very little hiding went on until later, because the Turkish authorities were actually involved for sure in the smuggling operation, so there wasn't so much hiding, and you could literally, from where we stood, even without binoculars, you could see the boats coming off from the other side, just the orange, if they were lucky enough to have life vests. But it's that strait is really deceiving, because Lesbos and that coastline of Turkey, we're a really mountainous area, and those mountains are then like it relates to the sea. So you've got this huge cavern, basically a valley. So it's really deep. And because we're at its narrowest point, the currents are fierce in the centre. The Aegean is renowned for its weather conditions because it's a sailing challenge. People come to the Aegean because the weather changes so dramatically, so quickly.
The Aegean is the sea all around the island.
It's part of the Med, but this area is the Aegean. So, but because of the islands, because of the terrain under the sea and the narrowness of the sort of between the islands and Turkey and everything, it changes dramatically. And the sea is from Turkey, it looks deceivingly close.
Exactly. You want to swim that time.
That's why so many people drown.
Yeah, because it's so deceiving.
Yeah, you could almost, and a lot of the people were told by the smugglers that it's just an inland lake, you'll be fine, it's not that far. And I think reality hits when you're about 2 kilometers into it and you're in the rough water, in a tiny dinghy that's overloaded with people, and the kids are screaming, and
Back then, we hadn't heard that much about what was happening in Greece. We just heard something is going on. There was a journalist had been here, and she said it's terrible out here, but she didn't get it into any newspaper because Lampedusa was the news at that time.
Of course.
So we thought we'll just go. And then we ran into you. Yeah. And Eric took us to the hill on the seaside early morning with the binoculars, which he hardly needed. Yeah. Because he just saw it straight away when there were boats coming. And then we were running off to the beach and helping people out of the boats. And for us, that's an experience that has changed my life for the years after in activism, and I think it also in a way changed the island, or the people from the Netherlands coming to the island, like Boat Refugee Foundation was we were just this little hook where they connected onto, and then they went off organizing themselves in a great way. But that moment, there was nothing. You were there. Handing out water and then just telling people, this is the map, this is the road, you gotta walk it, the road lined and marked with clothes. How was that? How was it for you that time in Eftelu, right?
Yeah, I think it's really a difficult concept for people to understand. In the so-called civilized world that we live in, you have a support network that is there. If someone is sick, they go to the doctor. If someone is seriously injured, you call an ambulance. If you need to get somewhere, you take a bus, get a taxi. None of that was there.
For the people who crossed.
For the people crossing. And when we got involved, we were still extremely naive because we lived in Eftelu for years in a bubble, quite happy with our little quiet world. And from the beginning, we actually really still thought that help would come, because this is Europe, and this whole thing couldn't happen without people coming to help. We were months and months and months into this, and still nothing came. Still nothing came. I mean, this is Europe. Where is even the military? Because they have the equipment. They have the medics, they have the trucks, they have some kind of system. No, nobody wanted to know. The local police, the Coast Guard, they just completely out of their depth and had no clue what to do. Very little training, no guidance. So they did what a lot of people would do and just tried to pretend it wasn't going on. And when people turn up and they're bleeding out on the floor and things like that, or you've got somebody who's fallen in the water and they're basically unconscious because they've almost drowned, or they're not breathing. Hypothermia was an issue we never kind of got used to. People make it all the way here and then they die on the beach. We basically just made it up as we went along. It was, what do you do, we did the best for people, but it was nothing but a Band-Aid over a gaping wound, and it still is, which is quite tragic. You know, we're 7 years on because we started to help in late 2014, early 2015, and nobody came. You know, we were alone, and we kept thinking help will come, and it was in May that in 2015 that Eric started to put out YouTube videos, just because we had nowhere to turn. Nobody came. It was just basically grabbing the camera that we had and trying to get the world to help. So these videos were going out every day of actually, how can this happen with nobody here? Yeah. And that summer, really the only help that came until late June, early July, was from the tourists. You know, the tourists are donating bread or leaving money at the pharmacy so I can get bandages and first aid supplies, because we had no money. You know, I gave away our clothes. Eric still complains that I gave away his new shoes, but 7 years on, he still hasn't let it go.
Well, if that's the biggest problem in your relation,
but like all my daughter's clothes because we had clothes she's grown out of and stuff like that, and that went to the babies and the kids and stuff, and we gave away our bedding and our blankets and anything that we could get our hands on our own stuff we were giving away. And then some of the supermarkets started to give us like day-old bread, and they'd donate like a pack of water or something like that. But we were filling up sort of water containers and just plastic cups trying to give out water to people. Because the situation, you know, it started as early 2015 as a few boats a week.
Yeah, you said end of 2014. So before you were living your quiet life from 2010 to 2000.
No, 2000.
To 2000 even.
Yeah.
2000 to 2010, 14.
Yeah.
You were living your quiet life. Eric is an artist, creating wood sculptures from
and paintings,
trees.
and but the olive wood was our business. We had a small shop in Efteluw where we sold the things he made.
How was the relationship with your neighbours in that time?
Not good.
Not good, even before.
Do you know, we moved here? We came here a lot on holiday, and it's very different. So when we moved here in 2000, we came here because we had friends here. So we thought. I think we were here 2 hours, and we were told to go back to where we came from.
Oh.
Yeah. And that should have been a hint. Maybe we should have left then, but...
Well, I'm quite grateful that you didn't.
And then it was fine. You know, we rubbed along with people as best we could. You know, we're moving. We were quite conscious of the fact that we're migrants, and we need to accept the culture that we've chosen to live in. So we accepted a lot and took a lot. And they were fine as long as we were working for other people. So, like, I spent from 2000 to I spent 5 years working for other people as a waiter, cafes, bars, restaurants, that kind of thing. Just earning the money through the summer while we could. And this is pre us having the shop. So that was just after we moved here. And of course, our daughter was really small. So I was quite happy. It's like, Daddy, have your child. I'm going to work.
Nice.
It's very nice, especially when your daughter is 2. And a drama queen, bless her. Yeah. No, it worked out really well. And then Eric got work where he could in the winter. So, it was fine. We never had money, but we had enough to exist on, you know. How much do you need? Yeah. And then we opened a business in 2006. We opened the shop in Molivos, because at that time he was some years producing and making things and stuff. So we had the stock. We decided, actually, let's go ahead and open a shop. And it went downhill from there. In Molivos, because we had the shop in Molivos, not in Efteluw to start with. So we did a few years in Molivos. They didn't like us being there. We were accused of stealing the bread from their children's mouths. Basically, we'd stepped out of our place in the system, the society that they had. While we were foreigners just working for other people, it was fine. But foreigners owning a business is, we clearly forgot our place in the world. So it was quite bad then.
That's quite
for years.
lonely too, right? Did you have friends?
We had each other, and our daughter was young, and we were... I think we kind of turned inwards then, which is great, because the reason we moved here was that we could be parents, that we could be with our kid. You know, we intended it was a planned child. And then the reason we left the UK is you look around and you think, yeah, we both got to work full time to support this kid here in any kind of, even to scrape an existence. And that's not what we had planned as parents. So, yeah, Greece was really about our daughter and about being able to be parents and being able, she was always with one of us, which was amazing. So we both got to experience at different times of the year a lot of time with our kid growing up, which was fabulous. But yeah, it was difficult to get that level of racism from people you thought you knew.
Racism as in?
Oh, we you know, you can't speak out about anything because you're a foreigner. You're in Greece, you're a guest. How many times I'd like to have €1 for every time somebody told me I was a guest in their country.
You would be rich.
Yeah, but it's fair enough. You know, we tried to, you know, this is my home. So we tried to fit in as much as we possibly could. But Greek culture is very difficult.
You still call it home?
It's very much my home. Otherwise, do you think I would still be here now?
Well, stubbornness goes a long way.
Stubbornness, yeah, but it's like I don't have another place that I would consider home.
Why is it home if it's not the people?
The island is incredible. I don't know. Maybe we just got stuck. There's a lot of good memories from when our daughter was small and stuff. But again, you know, in sort of hindsight, maybe it wasn't the best idea. She had a lot of bullying at school. She had a really tough time. And then, of course, when she was 16, the refugee situation hit her, which is very young to have your life turned, your already upside down life turned completely upside down. So it's just been interesting.
It is.
Yeah, we were always the outsiders, always the foreigners. And I guess we do have a tendency to be quite outspoken about things that bother us. So we're not kind of shrinking violets in the sense that we would just shut up and put up with it. And there was a certain level then of intimidation that came from the local population. It's a small village. It was, and that's nothing against the Greeks. That's small villages everywhere. Of course, you're an outsider until you've lived there for like 6 generations. So it's not Greece. It's small village.
Yeah.
It's very different. It always reminded me of Wales with sun, because everything was everyone else's fault. The foreigners are coming here and taking our houses, and we've always done it like this.
So it's not Greece, it's everywhere. It's
everywhere, yeah. It's a small village thing, and we were outsiders. But, yeah, how long do you need to stay and how much do you need to bleed before you get accepted? I think, for me, my peace of mind actually came after I stopped trying to be accepted, if that makes sense.
It does.
I got to a sort of screw you kind of attitude. And that was well before the refugee situation. That's actually, yeah, no, I'll do me, you do you, and we'll keep away from each other because it's not working.
It's also a way of being neighbours, right? I mean, accepting.
I guess, yeah. I guess.
Yeah. You said this one line, the island is beautiful. What do you love about the island?
There are really, really lovely people here. But that's not it. It's I don't know. How can you pinpoint it? The nature is beautiful. Being so close to the sea, even now when I have issues with the sea, because it's taken me a while to actually go back in to swim. And even then it's not a pleasurable experience, but I still have a connection with the sea, if that makes sense, weirdly. It's like swim? A love-hate relationship now.
You don't swim because?
Not anymore. I can't. I think the last time I enjoyed a swim was summer 2014.
Too many people died in that sea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried the last couple of years. I go swimming, kind of. But it's, we're in a very different sea because we've moved. But yeah, I think I need to make peace with the sea, but it's going to take a while.
It's love and hate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's touchy, right?
Always, it's been more than 7 years, nearly 8 years of this, so...
That's long. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we go through weeks of daily dead, and it kind of, I don't know if you ever become cold to that.
I hope not.
Me too. But yeah, I've started to kind of swim a little bit. But it's very difficult to get the motivation to go in there, because I look at the sea and I think, oh, that looks pretty. Then I'm like, no.
It reminds me of what people in Poland say about the forests. They're old
imagine.
Forests, they love it. It's the last old forests in Europe, and it's their holy place.
Wow.
And now it's where people
It's
are
a place
dying.
of death.
Yeah. 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 Back to this moment.
We've gone off.
In 2014.
Yeah,
No, it's important. But in 2014, you see these first boats coming. I mean, what do you see? What happened?
But it wasn't the first boats.
Ah.
That's the thing is everyone talks about the crisis of 2015, like it was the first refugees to ever arrive. But it had been going on for a very, very long time, for years and years and years and years. I mean, if you search for Refugees Lesbos 2009, it'll show you the old detention centre, which was beyond horrific. Moria looked like a holiday camp compared to that. It was dreadful. Yeah, really dreadful. So as
So what did happen if not a sudden appearance of
it
refugees?
was sudden in a way, but it wasn't something that had not happened before. But previous to that, we didn't really see the boats arriving. It was mostly young men, smaller boats, came at night. We'd find the debris on the beach and think, oh, a boat had arrived. But we were like everyone then, and you think, oh, well, I shouldn't get involved. This is a border matter, it's a police matter. So you don't, it's not something we ever sought out. And what got to us, I think, was 2014 in the November. We'd had a really busy summer, all quite stressed. So we took our daughter out of school for the day, and we thought we'd have a family day trip to Turkey, because that would be fun. Yeah, I know. We shouldn't plan these things. So we got to the port in the morning, got through customs, waiting for the boat, went out into the open air area to board the ferry, and were horrified. There was hundreds of people in the open air area, women, kids, exposed to the elements because there was no shade or shelter, one toilet, and all these refugees were just being kept like animals on the port. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then that's when it hit us that something had changed. With the refugees previously, they went in waves, and it was mostly summertime when the weather was better and stuff. But as borders are closed, I don't think this has always been. So every time we start a war or invade somewhere, there's a byproduct of that, which is people. They have to go somewhere. But as Europe tightened the land borders more and more between Turkey and Greece, and then the northern routes and stuff, as they tightened those, then the only routes left for them were by sea.
Yeah. And
it was kind of safer, I don't know, which is quite bizarre, because obviously you can't go from Libya to Lampedusa or whatever, because you're 50% chance of going to die, but you've got less chance of dying here, maybe. I don't know, but they took the only routes that were left open to them. But of course, I mean, the UNHCR actually predicted this thing in 2015. They knew it was coming. They saw the numbers increasing in the camps on the Syrian border as the war increased in Syria. And then, like, the World Food Programme didn't get the funding they needed, so they cut the meals in the camps. The camps were on the borders of not very safe areas. So would you stay there with your family if you had the chance of ISIS turning up, abducting your kids or whatever? It wasn't safe.
And you noticed here on the island that change.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's when, late 2014, when it started to pick up. But we hadn't seen boats actually landing in front of us at that point. So you have this thing of, oh, it's not my problem, I shouldn't, And then we went to Turkey for the day and it was in our face. And my daughter was then 16. And the three of us all day, we didn't get to really enjoy our day out because this was bothering all of us. So we talked about it a lot through the day. We even tried to bring food back so we could give it to the people on the... Because we thought, oh, okay, when we land, we can give them at least something. Unfortunately, when we got off the boat, we were greeted by a line of police officers with dogs that were between us and the refugees. So we literally just had to put the bags down on the port side and hope somebody got it, because we can't cross into the country with food because it's not allowed from Turkey to import food. So we just left it there. And then it was in our minds for some weeks. And then it was one morning I was taking my daughter to school before the Christmas, 6 o'clock in the morning. And literally as we got to the end of our road, a boat landed in front of us. And I still remember the one child, she was maybe 5, just stood on her own, little blonde kid, bright red winter coat, just stood on her own, staring with this empty stare into the distance. And that was it, really. It wasn't even a discussion. It was, we have to stop. Like, I don't understand as humans how you can drive past something like that and not do anything. I mean, what could we do? We were generally quite useless. We had nothing. But we stopped to see if they were okay, to see if we could do anything. We drove then to Molivos, left them there, drove to Molivos, got some water and some fruit and came back to them. And then Eric went home and got some of our towels and blankets and things like that. And that was literally the turning point of everything. It's impossible to... I think it's impossible to go past. How can I take my child to school and watch this kid on the beach? And it was freezing that day as well. And as I said, it went then from a few boats a week to a few boats a day to when you came, which was tens of boats every day, to the height in October 2015, which was... I think at one point we had 12,000 people in one day. Through both sides of the because it's like 15 kilometers of coastline at that point, which is mostly dirt road. So between Molivos and Sakaminia, which is the neighbouring village, and a little bit further on, there was 12,000 people in one day. And
then there were also the organization NGOs.
There was people. You know, we really thought that all these institutions exist for this purpose, but apparently not in Europe. But what instead we saw was amazing civil... as I said, the summer was mostly tourists, but they come on holiday and they're seeing this. And I don't understand how the island was so angry with the situation. I understand they were upset by it happening because it's my home too. Nobody wanted this. But the tourists, they love Lesbos, they loved Molivos. That was their kind of second home. They had an attachment, so they wanted to help. So instead of being angry with the refugees, they actually kind of motivated themselves. And all through that summer, the aid came only from tourists. The assistance came only from tourists. I had one Dutch couple, which is just an example, and they used to come twice a year, a month each time. So it was their second home as far as they were concerned. And they would come with us every morning of their month's holiday, and they would stay until 12. And then they would go back to the hotel, have some lunch, and then disappear to the beach. And the afternoon would be their holiday. So they would disappear to a beach where rarely got refugees, so they'd head off to the west. A away from the refugee situation, which was their relaxing holiday time. And then the next morning they'd be there 5 a.m. with us, doing it all over again. And they're an amazing couple. And that was kind of an example of what happened. It was a civil movement. The big organisations didn't come in to help. They really didn't. It was all the people.
And you became a neighbour for the people that landed on your beach just by stopping. I mean, that was the act of stopping while a boat arrives. And then it's not your own neighbours that come to help, but it's the tourists that become your neighbours in helping the people on the move.
It's incredible. We met some incredible people in that time, both from the boats and from, visitors to the island and stuff, and also people from the island. But it was much more difficult for the Greeks to get involved, especially from the village. There was a lot of hate. A lot of hate. It was amazing actually to see the difference between Molivos and Sykaminia, because Sykaminia is quite it's a poorer place. It's mostly subsistence fishing, farming, but also most of the people there are descending from refugees from 1922. So they're
That's a Turkish war, right?
Yeah, they grew up with stories from their grandmothers and stuff. And they were as annoyed and upset, not annoyed at the people, annoyed that it was happening, that it was being allowed to happen. There was a lot of anger, and not all of the anger was... I watched a man in Molivos one day screaming at a boat, literally screaming at a boat. But it was pure desperation, because he's like, it was his breaking point. And that was a local man who'd been helping a local farmer, and he was... Yeah, he had a breakdown. And from the refugees' point of view, they probably thought he was being abusive or something. But I could see and hear what he was saying, and that was his breaking point of watching this boat with 75 people heading towards rocks. That boat actually broke me as well later. But
because I also saw this fisherman. I think his name was Nikos. I'm not sure.
In Sykaminia.
Efterloo at that point, and he jumped into the water when we were there with you, just to swim for another.
Yes, of course. No, he's from Petra.
He's from Petra.
Yeah, well, Anaxos actually, so a bit further away. Yeah, incredible that day.
He
I
went
remember
to swim.
That.
Yeah, the brother of the man on the boat.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
He let himself go overboard to save the boat.
Yeah.
Because the boat was overloaded. They had already dropped their backpacks, and then it was still too heavy. So this man just...
He's in his 60s as well, Nikos. At that point.
Yeah. He was an old man.
Yeah.
He just jumped into the sea and went to swim. And then the brother of the man who had jumped into the sea also went in to swim.
Luckily, the Coast Guard was there.
Exactly.
And we got so told off from the Coast Guard, or actually Nikos did. It's like, really? Because I'm on the phone to the Coast Guard and saying there's a man in the water and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, no, there's 2 people in the water. And they're like, can you not stop them from jumping? Like, we can rescue 1. And I'm like, yeah, now the brother's gone in, so you've got 3. And they actually rescued the brother first.
They did.
Because he couldn't swim. So the thought was there, I get the point, but... And she's on the phone to me and she's like, couldn't you just please stop people jumping in the water? Like, yeah, sorry. They're rescuing.
They're saving lives. It comes from a deep place.
Nikos swam to the rock in the end, and the Coast Guard picked up the second brother first, and then the one that was drowning second, and Nikos made it out on his own.
Yeah, and in the end, the first brother...
I think I've forgotten about that incident.
Yeah.
Because, so much has happened that it drifts.
I can't imagine that you remember this one.
Yeah. Some of the earlier ones we remember more than anything. Because it was still fresh trauma then. Yeah. But I think the difference in Sykaminia was they had the anger, they had the frustration, the same as all of us. This shouldn't be happening. It's like, did nobody step up to stop this? But Sykaminia dealt with it in a more pragmatic way. It wasn't like we're trying to deny it's going on. It's like, this is happening. How can we... And they were trying to solve the impact on their tourism and their village. of course, and the impact on the sort of the environmental impact, which was also, as well as a humanitarian crisis, we had an environmental crisis going on at the same time with
all the life vests,
the plastic that they wrapped their phones in. Was a massive issue.
Yeah.
Because they're unwrapping their phones from shrink wrap and dropping it down. It's covered in salt. We had sheep eating it. The farmers were annoyed. I understand. Yeah. But Tsikaminia dealt with it in a very different way
the other village.
Than Molivos. Molivos was like, try to deny it's ever going on and hope it's going to stop. And maybe if we drown some people, they won't come anymore. And Tsikaminia is like, actually, if we limit the time and the impact on the village itself and the environmental situation, then we can maybe manage. They were the only group up there trying to manage their village, trying to manage this crisis. Molivos didn't try to manage it. They tried to deny it was ever going on, which is really the wrong approach because the impact was horrific on the city, on the town itself. It was just wrong for both sides.
For everybody, right? So if you try to do it right, like Tsikaminia, or better, more pragmatic, the impact on your village is less than when you try to push the problem away.
When you try to pretend it's not going on, it's just going to be, you have to try and manage it. You have to try and limit the impact on your town. And now they're admitting that maybe some mistakes were made. I'm like, no shit, really? Some.
But so you're saying that living as a neighbor for people on the move is also the most pragmatic way to deal with an issue that's going on.
Do you know, it was quite funny when all the volunteers kind of showed up in the end, because by November there was more volunteers than there was boats arriving, which is a little bit overwhelming. But I understand their motivation, but it was, yeah. But do you know, from those first boats, we brought little, we gave little. But as you said, just showing up and a hug. I hugged a lot of people that I don't know. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry.
Yeah, just a smile, a hug, a welcome, a handshake. It's okay. You're here now. You're safe. Was really more valuable than any water, fruit, or anything else. Obviously, when the weather was very cold, it was a massive issue with the hypothermia and the cold on the kids and stuff. But generally, most of the time, they didn't need the biscuits, the fruit. It was kind of a comfort thing. It's like, welcome, have a gift, sort of. But they really didn't need it. There was times later on in the year when they were hiding out and they'd had no food or water for like days, and they were quite desperate at that point. But that was like August, September time. Previous to that, it was literally, I think, the act of showing up and saying, it's okay, and giving a hug. I was hugged by so many soaking wet people. It's like I had so many women just running out of boats and just throwing themselves at me, and I'm crying, they're crying, and like, why are we crying? Because I do tend to get a little emotional. I was never a very good social worker, which is why I gave it up. Because I'll just cry with everyone. But that act of just showing up, just stopping, was, I think, more valuable than anything. Yeah.
Just to fast forward a bit, because there's been a lot happening since.
A little bit.
You've moved because you received so many death threats and threats to your life, and then you were pushed away by the landlord from the place where you live. So you had to move even. So the neighbors, the actual local neighbors, got the better of you, people maybe say. But here you are, in this extremely beautiful, huge center. There's art all around us. I would wish everybody would come here just to see what's happening, what's created. This place of boundless creativity.
Of hope.
Of hope, indeed. What's happening here in this place?
Well, we started the distribution when we were still living in the north. So we were actually travelling up and down, which was way too much, back in sort of 2017. Before that, we were just driving van loads of stuff up to Moria. But yeah, the art project started in 2018. We're kind of like years into it. We're like, actually, I'm a little tired of just sticking a Band-Aid on things. We need to, this is when people were stuck here And the mental health was horrific. Moria was a horrific place to be. The sensory overload was incredible because it was always noisy, always smelly, always exposed to the elements. It was just... So we wanted to create... It was kind of a oasis, if you like, a quiet, safe place that is quiet. And Eric and I had many discussions because we rarely agree on things when we have the concept, and we usually thrash them out to come out with some kind of... And I'm like, because I'm not an artist. And I said to him, how are people going to focus on painting when they're living in this drama of the violence, of the noise? How do you expect people to come in and paint? But I was really shocked when we started it. I was so surprised. And you know, it's a little bit quiet at the moment with the COVID, and a lot of our artists left a few weeks ago. So I think we're down to 3 at the moment. So we're hoping more will come in. But, you know, at some points pre-COVID, there would be sort of 50 people in that art room, all painting, all having this, and they're all different nationalities. And watching them work together, because our projects, we really think that it should be the refugees that are leading these projects, because who better to understand what people are going through than people from their own community or people from their own village, if you can call it that. So all our projects are led by the community themselves. So we had sort of an assigned art teacher in there. But they didn't need to be an art teacher because we watched as people swapped ideas. It became a hive of ideas, and the sky was the limit and things. And we added musical instruments. There's a full sound recording system in there. Yeah, it was just incredible. And I'd walk into there like with all the stress of the distribution, and people, like, because Moria would make people very tense. So the distribution was always very stressful.
Distribution of food and clothes.
Yeah. So,
and then you walk in here.
And I'd walk into the art room, and I'm like, yeah, this is heaven. I'm just going to stay in here because it was such an incredible atmosphere. And
so it did work.
It worked incredibly, to the extent that we ended up with this room now is quite new because it was a dance area and a free space. So we did everything from yoga and things. We needed a space for women to be able to sort of be a little freer, because obviously we can't have dance with specifically the Afghan ladies in a public space. So this became a private space. But this was very much a women's space. So we have the women's arts and crafts there, which was like literally the gossip room. I don't know how much arts and crafts went on in there, but they had a good chat. And then the noisy room, the beauty salon next door, which was always blasting music, and there was all sorts going on and giggling and things. It was fabulous. The barber shop was on restricted hours, obviously, because there was men in there. So they were only allowed to use that at certain times when the women let them, because this was their space. The tailor's shop was always running. So we had 3 tailors there because, again, mental health, there's nothing worse than being given clothes that are too big for you. It just makes you feel bad. So we're not psychologists or anything, but we feel if people have a purpose, if people have some self-esteem, and also changing of labels. Labels are horrible. Refugees, immigrants, like they're all the same kind of people. That's just nonsense. So here they're artists, musicians. We had a break dancer at one point from Syria who did a breakdancing class. We've had yoga classes, dance, the barber, the cook, everything. It's about the title, and it's a small thing, but if you can change your label, it really helps. And again, with the clothes that are too big, if you're wearing sloppy clothes around the house, you feel sloppy. You feel like, the boys would come out of here with tailored shirts because they'd had them taken in, and they'd changed the jeans to skinny jeans and stuff just from the tailors working for free in there. And they'd had a haircut and a shave. And that is such a big step for your mental health. Today is a good day. Obviously, tomorrow's not going to be so good. But if we can keep people focused and give them an interest and try and nurture that interest to help them in the future.
What did it bring you? I see you smiling now, and I see the sparks shining from your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people think we should be utterly broken at this stage. And I do get emotional, and I am tired of dead kids on the beach. I'm tired of abusive people. But on the flip side, I mean, I guess we've gained hugely from this, from a personal experience. You know, we've met people from all over the world. I have so many kids now that I didn't know I had. My own daughter feels a little left out sometimes. It's like when I get all these Mother's Day messages from the boys that have been through here, and Eric is dad to so many people. Because I guess that's the way we've approached it, is just a parenting viewpoint. You know,
that's what you came here for.
Yeah,
parenting
but
your
it's
kid.
not my own child. I had to send my child away because people wanted to kill her. So, yeah, that was tough. But yeah, we've kind of got kids from all over the place who a lot stay in touch, a lot don't, which is also good. I think we're a part of their past and part of something that they need to move on from, which is brilliant. And then out of the blue, 3 years after they're gone, they're like, "Hi, Mum, how are you?" It's cute. We've laughed a lot. I've learned a lot. Okay, it's come at a huge cost. Emotionally, physically. Yeah, but hey, we're still here. Still going strong. Well.
What would you wish for all those people at the different borders of Europe who have made the choice or are thinking whether they should make the choice or to do this thing, live as a neighbor for people on the move? Or with people on the move.
It's an incredibly enriching experience. Yeah, I feel I'm a better person now than I was 7-8 years ago. I'm much more aware of the world around me, and I've met some incredible people. Some that made me laugh, some that made me cry, some that made me infuriated. But that's the thing; they're just people, so they're not refugees. They have their own hopes and dreams, and some incredible young people come through. A lot of broken people that we've tried to sort of lift up and pass on. And again, it's kind of parenting, but it's important. It's important for all of us, for our community, because, you know, even back in the Hope Centre days to now, is we try and make this a community project, not a refugee project. This involves everybody here, because, you know, the island has been greatly impacted by this. We now have another economic issue. People are really struggling. Yeah. But also, I think, you know, if you can create an environment where people can meet, people can talk, and it's not this scary thing that you see on the media. It's actually a person that they can have a conversation with. It becomes very different. So would I go back and change what we did? No, never.
No hesitation there.
No.
No, that's beautiful.
One, there was no one else, and two, you know, okay, it's been difficult, to say the least, and the cost, as I said, has been huge, but no, it's worth it.
It's worth it.
In a way, except my daughter, which was hard.
Yeah.
You know, the death threats were so bad then, but, you know, as an older person, we could isolate ourselves, myself and Eric, but my daughter was 17. She needs a life. Yeah. And when you're afraid to let your daughter out through the door because people are literally specifically threatening to slit her throat and rape her, yeah, that was the hardest decision out of everything, was to send her away. Yeah.
That's tough.
But I think, you know, those working on the borders, I see now with the Polish-Belarusian border, well, not now, but, you know, this year, end of last year, this year, what they're doing is incredible. And do you know what sticks in my throat is I see with the Ukrainian situation.
Yeah.
It's bothering me.
Of course.
Not that I think that Ukrainians shouldn't be treated like this.
Yes, we grant them all. Yeah.
But I'm seeing, when it started, I'm seeing all this praise in the media for the solidarity and how much work these people, like people from Poland, were doing. And I'm like, hang on a minute. At the same time, you are prosecuting those that have worked all winter trying to save lives. and you're praising this. It kind of brought to the forefront how racist Europe is, which is quite tragic. But I think when it's left to people without, to communities and to neighbours, they will always help.
Thanks.
Sometimes my tears are drowned, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday